Who has a 100-word summary of the trouble you guys got into last episode?
We ascended into the sky.
Puzzle.
So we were crushed into paste. I would like to ooze slightly to the left.
I came up with a new character. It's named Devil Ham.
So
Like-
we're now, the next 4 hours are going to be Brook Road sitting here talking about how we failed our mission to save the world from whatever the fuck we were supposed to save it from.
Is that what you guys
And
were
how the
doing?
world is fucked. Yeah, that's what we're going to do this
We're
time.
not adventurers. Pretty sure we're not adventurers. We're detectives.
Right.
I love.
I'm supposed to say that without laughing. Don't break kayfabe.
Yeah, that's right. Can't break kayfabe.
Riding the platform up into what looks to be the underside of this giant sandstone cube. Actually, it wasn't a cube. It was rectangular. It was much taller than it was wide.
Yep.
And featureless from all sides. But you guys solved the puzzles in the courtyard.
Yep.
And put together, like, you play with Legos for a while.
Yeah, we did do that.
I think the kindergarten portion of the last session was my favorite.
Did the first search on some Tangram.
I think my favorite part of that session was when you guys were like, what's the chances that Burkred went through all of this trouble and this isn't even the answer? Like, he's just doing this to mess with us. And I'm thinking, 0% chance. There's no way I'm doing all that work.
How funny would it have been, though?
It would have been really good.
That would have been like, that would have been a next level. We would have had to not be friends anymore.
Jeez. I don't even like doing the work that's required to run the game I'm running, let alone do extra work, so.
But it's trolly.
But it's not extra work if you and something.
Now, there's a very long word that's going to be coming at you later this session, and I want to apologize ahead of time if I pronounce it wrong, because I
Okay.
really don't. I've literally been practicing this word.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
You'll see when we get there.
Cautious.
As the platform rises, which of you is the tallest?
I'm holding Seeker above my head,
Yeah.
like a Simba. So
So-
it's Seeker currently.
One by one, starting with Seeker, as you impact the bottom of this sandstone structure, you guys blink away, one at a time. There's a sensation as though you're pushing through a kind of weird, gooey membrane, and you're surrounded by bright silver light extending in all directions. The sensation only lasts for a second or two before you find yourself standing in a large, cavernous room. To look around, Seeker, since you got there first,
Yeah.
you arrive on a dais raised off the ground. And the steps step off of it in all directions, circular. In the center of the dais is the same sigil on the floor that you've seen before, down below in the mazes. Except instead of this one being laid out with very fine powder, it's actually chiseled into the dais itself. And you kind of stomp your boot against it a few times, and you realize the dais is made of metal. But stepping off of the dais, the floor that stretches away, and then the walls in the distance are made of the sandstone color that you've seen before. The walls look much, much farther away than they should. Like, the interior space is larger than the exterior space. And looking ahead of you, you can see on the floor, you think it's like a carpet, maybe, or a tiled pattern along the floor, extending from the front of the dais off towards the, we'll call it north, why not, wall, which doesn't look like it's flat in the extreme distance. It looks like it has curvature to it, curving away from you. You actually also kind of get a moment of vertigo as you're inside this interior space. But the more you look in any direction, the further away the walls seem to recede. And at this point, one by one, your companions pop in around you.
Light sources?
None that you can tell immediately, but it's not difficult to see. It's like there's a kind of ambient glow in the air. So you can turn any direction and see the wall far away. And you can make out tiny details and patterns and things in the wall and sometimes in the floor. But you couldn't really say why you can see that far. It's definitely not dark vision because you're seeing the color of the wall. And looking to the north in the curvature, that effect is even more pronounced.
Ambient turn on the lighting. That's such a hack.
So, what do we want to do now?
Well, it looks like there's a path to follow, at the very least.
Yep. Let's just send Scrappy about 5 feet ahead of us. And...
Okay, who's taking lead out just behind Scrappy?
I mean, I want to be in the back because I have a big gun.
I'll
Yeah.
go. I'll be right behind Scrappy.
Oh,
I'll be right in front of you, Alex.
Okay.
Florian in the middle.
When Scrappy starts bounding off to the north, Gus, when you set your foot off of the metal dais onto the path on the ground, to your eyes at first, like I said, it looks like maybe a rolled carpet or even colored tiles. But as you put your foot down on it, the area around your foot, the patterns in the floor move out of the way so that your foot lands on blank stone. This doesn't happen when Scrappy walks ahead of you, but it happens when you take a step off the dais.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
It's unusual.
And this happens to each of you in turn as you step off the dais and move to the north.
It doesn't seem to be immediately harmful, so you want to just keep going?
Yeah.
Moving to the north, the far, far away wall towards the curvature starts coming into focus. What you see is a two-tiered structure, both of which are on this on the far curve of the wall. The bottom tier looks like a library from far away. It looks like rows and rows and rows of tomes and books. In front of it is a large copper statue of a humanoid creature. The second tier, above the books, connected to the floor that you're on with two sweeping staircases, one on either side, is a very bizarrely colored wall. It's crisscrossed with, from what this distance looks like, glowing lines, moving, snaking back and forth in large irregular swoops, sometimes angular, sometimes in great arcs, sometimes tracing flashes of multicolored light. The structure of the wall on your left-hand side looks like the back of it is made out of silver, as in the metal. The other half, your right-hand side, looks like it's ashen gray in color that conforms to no metal that you can think of. The lights that are zipping back and forth and crisscrossing are much, much more frequent on the ashen gray side, the right-hand side of the wall. Easily 1,000 to 1.
Lucius gravitates toward those stacks of books to the shelving, and he starts looking at spines.
Okay. As you approach the stacks of books, you're breaking off from the main path and going off to one of the sides of the library.
Sure.
Left or right?
Left.
So as you step off the path, you make your way up there. The large copper statue, its eyes open, and they're glowing white. And it raises its head up. Let me get a better description of the statue here. You realize the statue is not a statue. It was a creature that was standing perfectly still. It's about 10 feet tall, and it's comprised largely of... It's made almost entirely out of copper, the parts of it that you can see. But it has long, gangly limbs, and it has these white orbs in its eye sockets. You can see its head and the half of its arms and its feet from the ankles. The rest of its body is covered in flowing robes of muted autumnal colors. And it moves towards you.
I'll stop when I see it move and say, oh, I didn't realize I'd broken some kind of protocol.
And it stoops down. And as it does so, it bends in a way that you wouldn't expect a humanoid to bend. Like a 10-foot tall humanoid, you might expect to kind of maybe kneel down to your level or stoop at the back. This one kind of folds irregularly in bizarre-looking ways to lower its head down to your level, where it's just looking down at you a little bit, but you can speak to it eye to eye. And it says in this very calm, very detached voice in the common tongue, it says, "No apologies necessary. We welcome all seekers."
Seeker perks up.
Looks back towards Seeker.
And it seems to be regarding you, Lucius, very curiously.
My name is Lucius Udok. These are my companions. We represent a group called Flumph Inc. in the city of Dunthos. And he came here with questions.
The creature replies, "We are the Aptononochregon. We would hear your questions." It's a big word, right? Had to practice that one.
What's an Aptononochregon?
Oh, almost got it.
No, that's dead on.
You were pretty close.
Roll the tapes.
I will paste it in the Twitch chat. No, you got pretty close. There you go. So you ask, what is an Aptononochregon?
Yeah.
And it responds, "We are the Aptononochregon."
What is the person?
Organization? A group of people?
What's next?
Lucius asks, is the Aptononochregon a group of people, an organization?
And it replies, "We are the Aptononochregon."
What is the purpose of the... I'm not going to even try.
Say it.
You have to try.
Say it.
An Aptononochregon. An Aptononochregon.
3 out of 10.
That's the best you're going to get.
The creature replies, "The purpose of the Aptononochregon is to watch the doors."
Just looks around for doors.
There are no doors in sight.
What doors?
And the creature stands back up to its full height and pivots around, and with one of its long gangly limbs reaches up over its head and motions to the silver and gray wall behind it, but says nothing.
What's behind the doors?
And the creature replies, "Everything else."
Got me there.
Everything else?
And the creature, again, folds itself down to Lucius's level. Says, "The seeker had questions?"
We were looking for a compatriot of the late Eldov Fireblood.
Eldov Fireblood is known to us.
What do you know about the Firebloods?
And the creature begins recounting old history of the Fireblood family. How they were a noble house in Dunfoss a very long time ago that through shenanigans, it wouldn't use the word shenanigans, obviously. It's an Aptononochregon. Like, but the Fireblood house lost most of its lands and holdings, but because of their loyalty to the crown, especially to House Humberth, they remained in good standing in his service. The king at the time, every fourth king in Dunfoss tends to be from House Humberth. And because the Firebloods had elven ancestry, on average, they lived longer than most of the citizens of Dunfoss, which means it was entirely possible for one Fireblood to serve under two Humberth kings. And this was the status quo for several hundred years until the last of the Firebloods, or the last of the noble Firebloods, as the creature says, found wealth and majesty elsewhere and forsake Dunfoss. So the history lesson goes on for a few minutes, and it's very dry, and it's very factual, and it doesn't offer many opinions of its own. It feels like you've looked up Fireblood in the encyclopedia.
Do you know where we could find proof of lineage of the house?
The creature seems to think for a moment and says, the last noble Fireblood hid the remainder of his house and was an effective end to its nobility.
Do you know where we could find seeming proof of lineage?
The creature seems again lost in thought for a moment. It says, I'm sorry, our data on this topic has not been updated in some time.
Oh, I have one. I have a good question. How can we manufacture proof that someone is a member of the House of Fireblood? Eh? What do you think of that one?
No, you're going down the line I was going down.
And the
We're on the same
creature
road.
lists several of the characteristics of the house. I mean, Nodal would know this information better than I do, but they're like what the house sigil was, house colors, if there was a patron animal, if there was a particular temple that they followed. There's historical data on all of this.
Seeker's writing it all down because this is more than they've found so far.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to remind me, but like maybe we should ask him like what the process to verify, like to raise a noble house is in Dunfoss, because nobody in Dunfoss seems to know.
Oh no, we all know. It's to make the king do it. That's pretty much it.
Oh, like, yeah, because I feel like that nobody in Dunfoss knows how anything in Dunfoss works.
That sounds about right. That's about correct.
It's because every time they get a new king, they change things.
Democracy is terrible.
So
The way that things in Dunfoss work is that if you convince everyone you can do something, you can do something.
yeah,
As it seems that we've come to the end of questions, the Aptononochregon starts regarding all of you in its folded down state, turning its head this way and that. And it says, it has been many, many years since seekers have arrived.
no, just the one.
Yeah, so he raises one.
And it regards Seeker, and then it regards the rest of you. Holds out its hand, waves it back and forth to indicate all six of you, and says, all who come here are seekers.
Welcome to the family.
He's including the robot dog in that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fair.
Okay.
Scrappy's a
Oh,
good.
robot dog.
He's not a dog, but first of all, he's a good boy, regardless.
How can we trust what the Aptononochregon is saying
Close.
is true?
Are you asking the creature that, or are you just discussing this
Yes.
with you? Okay.
He's asking the creature that.
If
Its
it would-
response is the Aptononochregon would not be of much value if it spoke falsehoods.
What does the Aptononochregon
Oh.
know about the history of the Fireblood line after their nobility ended?
And it seems lost in thought for a moment. And it says, well, actually, it starts going into great detail in the many misadventures of Eldov's stupid hut that it would have been referred to it over the years.
Can you
Stupid hut.
can
That's-
you summarize a bit and maybe jump to any members of the line after Eldov in particular? I'll probably interrupt about the second adventure.
Okay. Nobody wants to hear about Eldov. I understand.
I already heard a lot about the hut growing up. Look,
Seeker
Plot,
turns
twist,
to
and
the
lore.
left.
Got
I-
it.
I feel like the only person that wants to hear about Eldov is Eldov.
Seeker looks to the left and looks at the magic elevator, and then looks at the incredibly spacious interior and says, "What do you know about the creation of magical artifacts?"
Well, let's field Alex's question first, because you interrupted him,
Yeah, sorry.
and you asked,
Yeah, jump forward to any members after Eldov of
and
the family.
the creature says, we're very sorry. Our information on this particular subject has not been updated in some time.
When you're done with Nodal's question, I have another one that popped in my head.
Nodal, you ask about the creation of magical artifacts?
Yeah.
And it answers, this is not the Aptononochregon's purpose.
Do you have any books on the topic?
The Aptononochregon replies, we do not have any books.
Books in the room?
And I mean, behind the creature, like I said, this lower tier of this curved
Yeah.
wall, from this distance, it looks like a library. It looks like it's got tons and tons, rows of books and tomes all across these shelves. Shelves so high that it has one of those like cool sliding ladders.
Yeah.
To access them, one on each side.
But Seeker thinks for a moment on what the most profitable knowledge he can ask about is, and then looks over at Gus. Gus, you had a question?
Yeah. What can you tell us about the movements of Eldov's sister after she supposedly, like, 'cause she moved, right? She moved to another country and had children, and then supposedly the children died. That's my memory of the events, correct?
Sounds about right.
The creature responds, there was a disagreement between Eldov and the house that he served. The agreement was reached in that Eldov's family, the last remaining Firebloods, were moved away from Dunfoss, while Eldov sought his fortune elsewhere. But it was agreed that Eldov would retain his title. What was Eldov's actual title, come to think of it? I guess Lord at that point.
Yeah.
And then it goes into a very dry recounting of how Dunfoss selects its king, and how every fourth cycle, I'm sorry, every fourth or fifth, I don't even know my own lore here. And I don't have it up right now. But every time the king is chosen from the court of lords, it tends to come from House Humbers. And the Aptononochregon recounts that Eldov, every fourth cycle, would return in order to vouch for House Humber, to see that they ascend the throne.
Eldov just
So-
shows up randomly?
Wait a
Sorry.
second. So you see, you mean he would just appear and make his case for House Humberth, and yet, wait, it's the House of Commons that's supposed to next determine the
Correct.
or the
Right.
Court of Commons. It's supposed to next determine the king.
What's the order, Brick Road? It's commons, then nobles?
Commons, then lords. So yeah,
Okay.
there's 5 courts. So the previous like actual king who did any good was Juliana Humberth from the Court of Lords. There was then the Court of the Gods, which is chosen from the temples, then the Court of Arts, which is chosen from the magic colleges. Both of those kings kind of shat the bed. And then the Court of Commerce, the merchants in Guildhall, chose the current king, Maximilian, who's on his deathbed and fighting a losing war against the undead. And the next king is going to be from the Court of Commons. And it's looking like it's going to be this pirate Jack Nose.
Yeah.
How long ago was the latest update of your knowledge?
That's a good question.
And it thinks for a moment. And it says, the founders have not paid visit in many, many years.
Corollary question. Who are the founders? What are their names?
And it tells you 5 names.
Son of a...
He mentions Eldov Fireblood. He mentions Captain Terran. He mentions Jade Bull. He mentions Cube. And he mentions Kefas. And he identifies these 5 as the founders.
Where are their current locations? Or where was their last known locations?
And it rattles off some historical data about, especially about Terran fighting wars in the Underdark.
What are the what are the chances Terran actually walked away from all those wars in the Underdark he started?
He didn't start them; he just finished them, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened.
Where would you take the founders if they arrived here?
We would not take them anywhere.
Where would they take you?
We are exactly where we need to be.
By your current records, who is the current king of Dunfos?
And it thinks for a moment. And I actually have to look this up. Maximilian 11 Silverwolf.
So, at least within the last 50 years, I think.
Not all of our knowledge is delivered by founders or seekers. Some of our knowledge is simply gained.
Was there ever a I gotta think about how I want to ask this. So I'm gonna try this again. So the Aptononochregon
That's good. That was actually very good.
That was how you wanted to
gets an information update every time these 5 visit him, right? Have I got
No,
that
not
right?
every time. They get updates from all kinds of information,
Okay.
from all kinds of sources.
So, from what it's told you so far, it hasn't been visited by anybody in many, many years, but
Yeah.
it does know the current king of Dunfos, who was installed as recently as 12 years ago.
Right.
Okay.
Who gave you that information?
Yeah. Let's start there.
The creature says that it has... we have sensory inputs. They are strongest here, but they stretch outward, far to the east, across the ocean.
Aside from us and the founders, how many other groups of seekers have come here over the course of your existence?
It thinks for a moment. And then it says, precisely 7
Groups or individuals?
groups.
Okay.
What did of those? Well, we'd be the 8th. I said aside from us.
Oh.
Of those groups, did any try and do anything untoward towards you?
And it thinks for a moment. And it says, unfortunately, we did have to dispatch a group of orcs that were clever enough to gain entry. It became clear that they meant us harm. We eradicated them.
Can you
Okay.
do us a favor and warn us before we do anything that would cause you to make that decision regarding us?
Yes.
And it thinks for a moment. And you're starting to get the sense that every time you speak to this thing, it has to go into like data retrieval mode.
Yeah.
For a couple of moments.
It's
And it
such a
says,
nut, yeah.
we will give you fair warning.
Thank you.
Second question. You're a research aide, right?
In a manner of speaking.
And Seeker looks around at the others and it says, I think we might be trying to be a bit too clever here. I don't know about you, but somebody who would just decide that the quickest way between two paths is to create a giant chasm through the world probably doesn't want to play 20 questions with their construct. Why don't we just tell it what our goals are, and then it can find the information for us? And then Seeker will go in, like, hey, we're here trying to find out information on the Firebloods, namely, we're trying to prove that someone is a descendant of them. Do you have any information that could be helpful for us?
And it repeats some of the information that it already gave you.
Mm-hmm.
The historical information about House Fireblood. How about there was an apparent accord between Eldov and House Humberth that they would retain their nobility but only exercise it in a vote in the Court of Lords. You notice, though, that it does seem to be aware that Eldov had living relatives at one time. It doesn't give you any data on them. Make an insight check.
Uh-huh. That is
So
a
what are
5.
A 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Trouble, what do you think?
I was gonna ask. If we're just going to ask him directly, does he know what are the names of the last relatives of Fireblood that you have on file besides Eldov?
And it gives you the name of Eldov's parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles. And it starts tracing the lineage back up the tree until you make it stop.
But
Okay,
hold
but not
on,
the
he's not, but not the sister or
Right.
anyone younger.
And it says, forgive us, we do not know their names.
How do you... If Eldov Fireblood regular came in here with information to help update you, and you have sensors all over, how do you not have that data?
Make an insight check.
Roll higher than 3.
Oh no, the pressure's on now.
Can't do it.
There we
I thought it was going to be 4, and I was like, that's technically
Take
true.
a +5 on that.
Okay, so that is my insight is 4, so that is a 24.
Over the course of discussing things with the Aptononochregon, it does seem to know the things that everybody knows. Things that would be common knowledge up and down, like, trade routes. Both on land and on sea. Like, it knows who is the current Jarl of Kiska. It knows most of the major houses of Dunfoss. And it knows the information that it's been purposely given by founders or seekers who have come here. For it to know so much about Elda, but nothing about his sister or her children, the only explanation that you come up with is that information was either never given to it or has been purposely purged.
Did the founders create a way for them to remove information from you that they thought might be dangerous or compromising?
It says, the founders did not create the Aptononochregon. The founders merely found us.
Oh. Well, that is a... It's a homophone, isn't it?
Correct term there is usually finders. No, it's update.
But
Did the founders have a method of removing information from you that they might deem dangerous to existence, people, that sort of thing, or a way to prevent you, maybe even knowingly, from revealing information that you might have?
And it says, such was not necessary. It is the nature of the Aptononochregon that knowledge too dangerous to be held cannot be taken from this place. When seekers leave here, they leave here with only what knowledge benefits them, not that which harms others.
Is there anything about excluding Eldov himself?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any information about? Is there any? I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Is there any information about Eldov's family that would prove harmful to the greater to the just kind of gesture at everything, like everything?
It does start rattling off. Again, these are historical facts. These are going back at least 100 years or so. Because Fireblood served House Humberth for a very long time. And know a lot of potentially embarrassing things about historical House Humberth. Things that the house might cover up to this day. So, possibly. And now he has said those things, and now you know some of those things.
Okay. Second question. Do you know the location in the city of Dunfoss of a warlock by the name of Skada, where she's hiding and what she's planning?
It says, we're sorry, but this individual is not known to us.
Okay. Do you have any information about warlock activity excluding those directly associated with Flumph Inc.?
And it begins
in the city of Dunfoss recently.
In the city of Dunfoss recently?
Yeah, in the last year.
No.
Okay.
go further back.
Are we staying in Dunfoss?
Well, let's back up a little bit. Let's go general and get more specific when we find something to home in on. So yeah, we'll does that sound okay with you, Lucius? I don't want to. I'm trying to, just as me as a character, I'm trying to prevent Lucius's identity from getting into the
He does not want Lucius entered into the archives.
Yeah.
How about this? List all known warlock activity within the past 500 years on this plane of existence where the patron of the warlock was Rakasha.
Put Breckard on the spot. There you go. Good job, Destil.
It probably has 2 or 3 names.
Mm-hmm.
That
are any of them recent enough to be potentially related to what's been going down in Dunfoss Net recently?
No, not even close.
Okay.
What kind of information do you have on the weaknesses of fiends in general?
Quite a lot.
And Seeker starts writing it down. This all seems very useful information.
In general, the best things to have against just fiends as a whole would be holy water. I can't really think of another universal weakness that fiends would have. But the Aptononochregon does seem to be a repository of knowledge of fighting devils and demons specifically.
Have any of the Seekers that have come here ever been known by the name of Warlocksbane?
And the Aptononochregon thinks for a moment.
Any of those 7 groups included that member?
And it tells you no.
Have you? Well, she might not have been known as Warlock's Bane back then, especially if she didn't know how to kill demons. Have you ever had a Furbolg visit?
Yes. Furbolgs have been members of previous groups.
Was it a female Furbolg?
Which one?
Any of them?
It has met several.
Okay. How many people are, like, what is the average size of the group of people that come and visit you? I thought you've only had 7.
The average size of the group is 6.8. I don't know.
I just thought Furbolgs were kind of rare.
Actually, we're much larger than that because one of the groups was a large marauding band of orcs. So
It's just like 50 orcs they had to squish.
Throwing out all groups outside of 1 standard deviation.
Oh no.
What do you know of the source of the undead causing the war north of Dunfoss?
thanks for a moment. This is... We're unaware of war north of Dunfoss. What information does the Seeker bring us?
I'll repeat what I know about the undead. I don't know
Yeah,
if anybody else has more information than me. I don't think I have anything more than...
And when you're done talking, you see the white of the thing's eyes flicker rapidly for a few moments. And then it thanks you.
Probably an encoding protocol. Hey, Seeker, and I'll kind of grab Seeker and whisper to him, do you want to find out anything about that hand?
And Seeker will nod in just 1 second, though, because I have a pressing question.
Mhm.
When we leave, will we be able to return here?
And it says it does not know.
Will we be prevented by this location from returning here?
Possibly.
What circumstances would need to occur for us to be prevented from returning?
Malicious intent.
Okay, great. That sounds pretty good. I don't intend on any malicious intent.
Aside from the Aptononochregon, what else is here that might be useful to a Seeker?
And it says, and it waves its hands out wide, and spreads its arms, and stands up to its full height. It says, everything you see is the Aptononochregon.
Yeah, and Seeker nods. It was very unlikely that we had walked up to the one statue that was alive.
Well, no, I was wondering maybe there's, a lab
As far as
or...
other features in the room, the dais far behind you, and then the curved wall in front of you. The bottom tier looks like it's this massive library. The top tier has the silver and gray walls with crisscrossing lights.
a teleportation
Are there any other secrets
room,
here?
anything like that might have been useful, but...
What is that? Go ahead.
Are there any other secrets here currently?
No.
What
Load
what
up my
does
mind.
the Aptononochregon do
Watches the doors.
when when it receives conflicting information?
And it says it determines the information that is false and discards it.
How? What if, and Florian gives an example of Seeker saying one historical thing and Florian countering with a completely different historical thing. One of them is clearly true and one of them is clearly false.
It discards the clearly false one.
But how does it make that assumption? How does it make that judgment?
The judgment is self-evident.
And do you, would you inform, if you got 2 conflicting pieces of information, would you inform the provider of the false or true piece of information?
Possibly.
So you mentioned some sensors before that you have. Do you have any information on the construction or spell casting of spells and creating information retrieval?
No.
It apologizes and says we are not a spellcaster.
Alright, so here's what we could try if we think this thing really is omnipotent to some degree, semi-omnipotent. We could try giving it 2 separate facts that contradict as a truth test.
That sounds like a really good way to get kicked out. Yeah, and I don't want to.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What was the that artifact that Eldub's cleric friend lost? I don't remember if that's
It
actually
was
the
a
story.
stick, right?
Yeah, where's the
It's a
latest?
magical staff.
What's
Where's
the
the
last
latest known
known?
location of the staff?
We're gonna drag this relic into this campaign where they're
you, you're talking about Eric's Staff of Storms?
Well, like it.
lightning.
Yeah, the greatest crime
Okay.
of modern history. The
Right,
yeah.
So what's the
managed
what's the
to-
precise wording? What's the last known location?
Yeah.
What's his according to this guy? What's the last location it was aware that it was in?
And it thinks for a moment. It says a man in Sigil possesses it.
What the
When was that?
sigil?
Which man?
How can we get the sigil?
Ooh, that's a good question.
So first,
Says the-
you
says
asked
the-
which man,
Yeah.
and it replies, "We're sorry, we do not know his name." And then you ask, "How did we get to Sigil?" And it replies, "There are no known doors in Dunfoss or the surrounding regions. You would have to travel much farther south to Blue Worm."
Okay.
If you don't know his name, do you know any identifying features of the man? Race, age, height? I don't know.
Make an insight check.
He's
Because it thinks for a
he's
moment.
human. He's likely dead now.
Thinks for a moment and then says, "We're sorry, we don't have that information." But
Insight is that is a 8.
an 8, okay. Yeah, it says it doesn't know.
If he's human, then he's likely dead by now.
How old is this information?
Very old.
Okay.
What sorts of things did the founders ask you about?
The founders asked for very little. The founders instead gave me this task.
When was the last time you saw a founder?
Many,
Or
many
had-
years ago.
Can you give us the exact words of the task you were given?
It says that our tasks encompass many things, but primarily it is to watch the doors.
Where do the doors go?
To everywhere else.
By watching the doors, are you to prevent creatures from egress through those doors?
And it says we do not have this ability.
Would you allow us to use the doors?
And it says you would not need our permission. Nor could we grant or revoke it.
Okay, so that won't be something that gets us kicked out.
Okay.
What do you know about the doors?
It replies we know that they go everywhere else.
Do you have to trying to ask a question? Help me figure this out. I want to ask a
Generally-
question. How the doors work? Like, how do you act? Do you just walk through and declare your intent to go somewhere, and it takes you there?
It says sometimes.
Okay, not going through the doors.
Generally speaking, are the doors one way, or do creatures that go through them, are they able to return?
And it says both are possible.
When you're watching the doors, what would cause you to take action after something happened with the doors?
It says it is not our nature to take action. It is our nature to watch.
Do you inform?
Sometimes.
You alert.
Yeah.
When was the last time something? When was the last time that something came through these doors that pushed you to inform someone or take any kind of action.
And it says this has never occurred.
Why are you watching the doors? I feel like we're, you know, that scene in I Robot where Will Smith is talking to the hologram, and he's like, "That's what I feel like we're doing."
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, like, we need to just, this is a research tool. We need to just give broad strokes.
So you ask, why is it watching the doors?
Yes.
And it says that this part of the plane was closed for millennia. And when it became open, the founders were apprehensive as to what might arrive.
Are the doors the only means of entry from another plane?
Sometimes.
Is there anyone watching those other entries?
And it says, we also consider those other entries to be doors. Sometimes the doors are literal, sometimes they are metaphorical.
Can you see those doors from here right now?
And it turns around and it holds its arms up to indicate the two walls on the second tier, up above what looks like the library. But says nothing. It just indicates the two walls. So the left half of this wall, the whole wall is staking with lights, back and forth, sometimes in angular patterns, sometimes in great sweeping strokes. The left-hand side of the wall looks like it's made of solid silver, and the lights are very infrequent. The right-hand side looks like it's made of some kind of ashen gray material, and the lights are virtually constant.
I have a very. Go ahead.
Do I have leave to go up and take a look then?
And it motions to the staircases. It says,
Right.
It is not our nature to grant or revoke permission.
Lucius starts walking up the stairs and starts looking at these like panels. I
Which
guess?
side, left or right?
The right hand side.
So going up to the ashen gray side. As you walk up the stairs, it gets noticeably colder. To the point where if you were to hold your hand right in front of this wall, it would be like holding your hand like on the inside door of a blast freezer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get this close, you can see that these streaks of light are streaks of almost infinitely small. They look like runic characters. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them being written across the wall in light. And the right-hand side has many of these, and the left-hand side has very, very few.
Have you existed since the plane was not, since Trennis was not accessible when comings and goings couldn't happen?
And it says, "Oh yes, we have existed since time immemorial."
So what I'm kind of getting the vibe from this panel, from this panel is like it kind of reminds me of Matrix Code a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
Just the mental image that I'm getting here. Do I recognize any of the symbols, or can I?
You can't even see them. They move so fast. You can't there's nothing really to sit here and study or look at. It's they're crisscrossing the panel, the giant wall, so quickly your eye can't follow them.
I have a
And was
very-
there anything to watch?
Well, Alex, what's your question?
Was there anything to watch while the plane was locked?
We do not know. We were not here.
Lucius is going to move over to the other side, to the stuff that's a little less dense. Maybe he can parse something out with that. Something out of that.
Okay. And the temperature remains the same as you walk along, and it takes a fair while. Like it's an enormous wall. Like you'd have to take 3 dash actions or something stupid. But otherwise, except for the material the wall is made out of, a silver metal instead of a gray metal, and the streaks of light move in the same kinds of patterns, just far less frequently. Like you can easily go 30, 40 seconds without seeing one on this side of the wall.
Okay.
I have a very scary question. What is the give me an example of some creatures that come through the doors.
And it motions its arms towards the right-hand side of the wall. And says, the flashes of light indicated here are where Trennis touches the ethereal plane. And it says it does this predominantly in two places, known to you as the Feywild and the Shadowfell. Both of these places have large populations of creatures that are moving in between worlds at all times. And so it indicates things like, predominantly like fey creatures, fairies, centaurs, maybe some elves. And then from the Shadowfell, there are various types of monstrosities, the odd psychic undead.
Okay. What about, and then I'll point at the other wall. What is that? So, like, he's saying that the lines indicate, like, each one of the little lines are people passing back and forth?
Yes.
He goes, and I'll point over to where Lucius is. What do the lines over there indicate? The less frequent ones?
And it turns, lowers its right arm, raises its left. It says, this is where the world Trennis touches the astral plane. Motion through the astral plane is less frequent because it is only possible with very powerful magics.
Okay.
What about passages through these doorways that you're guarded to watch? Do you have information on those?
And it stays facing the back wall, but it lowers its arms and motions to what looks like the library in front of it. It says, these are the doors that are known to us.
Lucius steps down and starts looking a little closer at the spines as he intended to do before.
Well, you can't because you're up on the walls. You have to go back down the stairs.
Yeah. No, I'm moving back downstairs.
Okay. You do have to pass in front of the creature to reach the books.
Yeah.
He's big enough to step on you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Attack of opportunity. Squish!
So looking at these grand tomes, first of all, you realize as you get close up to the bookshelf that the spines, they look like large tomes that are they're sized for the Aptononochregon to hold.
Mm-hmm.
And even for the Aptononochregon, they'd be huge books. And as you reach for one along the spine, it asks you to clarify whether you would like to examine doors from Trennis specifically.
I mean, this deals with more than just Trennis's doors?
It says it's only been in Trennis for a short time.
I see. Yes, yeah.
It directs you to the far bottom, far right side of the shelf, where there's a tome that looks like it's half the thickness of the rest of them and half the size. This is a book you could easily pull out yourself.
Yeah, I will go to that book and pull it out.
And you open it, and it's not really a book so much as it's just this like leather-bound folder, maybe, because it's only a single page, and only half the page is taken up. And it's very small font, very small script, written in common, but it lists maybe 30 or 40 known doors.
Are there any doors in or out in the vicinity of Dunfoss, according to this?
There are, but most of them look like they are... we'll make an Arcana check. Figure this out. Let's see how much you know about this.
Let's see.
Make this an advantage. You're a dues-paying member of Tylisnus Apt.
Yeah.
Go ahead and take a +5.
Excellent. Oh, come on, frame rate. That's 22 plus Arcana 5, 27. Let's see if I can roll higher than 17. No.
Okay.
So yeah.
The vast majority of these known doors are what are called Fey crossings. These are places where you could cross into the Feywild. Using like druidic rituals at a particular point in a particular grove at this part of the equinox or whatever.
Yeah.
That accounts for the majority of them, and it accounts for all of them in and around Dunfoss, except for one, which is listed as a vortex far out to sea, far under the ocean, which is supposed to connect to the plane of water through the ethereal plane.
Do I have this right? All of these books, they contain information about every single portal that connects to every single world?
Are you asking the creature?
Yeah.
And this is, no, of course not. Only the ones that are known to us.
What's the most interconnected of the ones known to you?
It kind of depends on what you mean by interconnected.
Which world has the most of these portals?
Oh, Sigil, by far.